Hello, Janet Gabriel. How are you?
Hello, good morning. Very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. I've been following some of Janet's stuff for a while. We're in similar groups, and I said, "Oh, come on, have a chat." Explained a bit about my painting group, and just before I hit the record button, I was like, "Oh, should we record something?" She's like, "Oh, great, Gary. Appreciate you preparing me." But I like sort of just having a chat. We were chatting beforehand, and I said, "Look, my painters will really benefit from hearing what you have to say." And I explained about my group, how, I help painters out. And of course, we talk about paint and sundries and what's the best paint and the rest of it. But, I'm really keen on helping painters as individuals. We've all got lives, we're all human beings. And what appealed to me in speaking to you is you're big on kind of looking at beliefs and limited beliefs and beliefs that can harm us in our adult lives. And we're going to talk a little bit about where they kind of stem from and how we're pretty much like robots, aren't we? Most of every
We
day.
are, yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on, and sorry to you on the spot, but like I say, we're just having a general chat, and yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So where do they come from? All this. I said to you earlier about. I see a lot of posts about um, my painters where they've got perhaps a wallpapering job or a job coming up and they're up for and they doubt themselves, they doubt they can do it. Yet they've done it hundreds of times and the customers have always been happy. And where does that all come from?
Yeah, that sounds, if you feel that your work's never good enough, it's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on there.
Yeah,
So your beliefs, most of your beliefs about yourself is set around the age of 7 or 8. So beliefs about not being good enough, not fitting in, not being connected, not being likable, lovable, that sort of thing. And that's come from the people around us. So when we're born, we're like a clean sheet. We think anything is possible. A child will get up, try to walk, they'll fall down. They don't think, oh, I'm going to give up. They'll just keep, pursuing it until they can walk.
yeah,
So our beliefs come from, maybe a parent, maybe teachers, that they've said something to us or done something that have made us feel a certain way that we're not, maybe not good enough, for example.
mm,
Um, the thing is with children, children are narcissists. They think the whole world revolves around them, that everything is about them.
yeah,
So if mum and dad are arguing, for example, over money, the child will think it's because maybe they had to buy school uniform for you or a new pair of shoes. Or if dad leaves, it's my fault. I didn't clean up my room, or, I was naughty that day. So we take on those beliefs and they stick,
mm.
and we take them into adulthood and they run in the background, and then we run on autopilot.
It's
So
funny
nice,
actually.
yeah, sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say, like, when I was explaining, I did some hypnotherapy training 5 years ago, and it was one talk was about how you should speak to your children because say little Johnny's scribbling on the wall or whatever, and you're like, Johnny, you're a naughty boy, and
Yeah,
you can take it literally, because they're
yeah.
nominal, terms in their head. It's black and white. They can't rationalize. As parents, we don't say, right, in this particular instance, you're being naughty because of X, Y, Z. And now when I go out and I see parents with little kids, and they're like, "Oh, you stupid boy," and
Oh yeah.
you might have been stupid in the moment, but I'm like, in all honesty, I was probably the same. With my children, I wasn't careful with my words, and it's quite frightening to believe that most of your programs are installed by, let's say, 6 or 7.
Yeah, it is explain. I think I was the same as a parent. I've got two grown-up sons. I wish I'd known what I know today,
Yeah,
because I would have been a very different parent. And we imprint our children all the time. As I said earlier, if you're stressed out all the time and anxious, you'll pass that on to your children. You see whole families where they live in this constant state of stress. And it can be resolved.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because again, when I saw a few clients, and I probably wasn't good enough like yourself and the other people I've been interviewing, but we'd always talk about a problem, and then I'd say, right, how old do you feel now? They might be in their 40s, and then they're like, actually I feel like I'm 6 or 8, or there, and that just shows you the program that's running in their brain from
Yes,
40
yeah.
years ago. And then sometimes
Yeah.
that's quite enlightening.
I've seen a lot of people revert back to being a child when they're around their parents. Yeah,
Yeah,
they may have a really toxic parent, but they've reverted back to being that little child, and they can't speak up. They can't say how they feel.
yeah,
Yeah, it
that's so
is
cool.
fascinating. You know,
Yeah,
as you know, 97% of the time we're running on that autopilot and we don't even realize, we're automatically reacting to things. And your subconscious isn't rational at all. It's just all emotions.
yeah.
The
I
great
guess
thing,
that's like when um emotions stick, don't they? So, we can't remember all of our lives, but the ones that stick are bad events because of the heightened state of emotion, and hopefully some good events as well. The bad events have more highly charged emotions, and that
yes,
can stick,
yeah.
can't it?
It's interesting though. I've had two clients came to me at exactly the same time, and they both couldn't remember anything below the age of 10. And
Mm,
one lady, she was on high alert constantly, looking out for danger, and she couldn't sleep. And I took her straight back. I think she went back to being 6 or 7 in hypnosis. And that's where her issue came from originally. And when I followed up with her, she said, "What have you done to me?" She said, "I'm really calm. She sleeps fine." And I actually went back and checked that it's still working, and she's absolutely fine. She's sorted.
do you reckon the point of not remembering before you were 10, those kind of instances, your brain is like in protection mode, so will delete
Absolutely.
a lot of information which protect you.
Yes.
Can you ever get it back?
Yeah, so the other lady couldn't remember anything below the age of 10, but she knew, and her family knew that something happened to her when she was 7, this change in personality. But she'd not only blocked the bad memories, she'd blocked all the good memories as well.
Yeah,
So originally she said, I don't have a close relationship with my mum because she didn't do much for me growing up. And then after the hypnosis, again, when I followed up with her, she said, it's like you've opened the floodgates, and she could remember everything her mum had done for her. And they've got an amazing relationship now. So,
yeah,
you can't select which memories when you start blocking memories. And the thing is, when some people don't want to face their demons, but I would take my clients back to review the past. You can't relive the past, but you can review it in
yeah,
a very safe way. And I say to my clients, you're in charge. People think when you say hypnosis, oh gosh, who's going to take over my brain? If that was the case, I'd have a couple of Porsches outside,
yeah, yeah,
You are in control. And the fact that we all go into a hypnotic state throughout the day when you're driving the same route, how many times have you just arrived? I thought, oh, I don't remember the actual
yeah.
drive. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like you're not even aware, are you? Like the way you get out of bed, what foot you put in your pants first, and like, the way you clean your teeth. It's all like it has to be automated. Otherwise, if we had to every single day remember how to open a door or how to sit down, we wouldn't
Exactly,
get
yeah.
very far. But it's so true, isn't it? It's like, yeah, and that's why weeks kind of bend in so
Yeah,
quickly and months go quickly. And it's kind of like when you go away, you feel so much better because you've got out your comfort zone perhaps, or you broke a pattern, and it's more memorable, more enjoyable. So
it is, yeah.
yeah, it's so fascinating. I was saying to you earlier, when I was doing my training, just how your brain works, and one of the training we did was what you mentioned earlier about when you're around certain people, how you can just be such a different person. And
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So for my painters, like I say, they can lack confidence. They're bloody brilliant. We post regular. We see each other's work. They're amazing. It's nothing to do with painting, is it, at all?
No, it's, where has that belief come from that it's, your work's not good enough or you're not good enough? That's
Mm,
come from somewhere. And it's just digging back in the past. Some people remember, a lot of people really don't remember. And it can be something that seems insignificant at the time, but you've stored it in your memory and you're
Yeah.
still running on that program.
And sometimes as well, it can be like events, can't it? Or a event, or it doesn't have to be anything of any significance. Then it's like a spider web, isn't it? You kind of attach it to different scenarios throughout your life. It's that repeat pattern, and suddenly it's a big web of the same type of belief. So in all areas of your life, it can be a feeling of not being good enough. So it might reflect in your personal life, not just your work life as well.
I say to it, it's not what happens to you that affects you, it's your interpretation of that event.
Yeah,
So two people can be in a car accident together. One could believe I'm going to die and won't get in a car ever again, or very nervous and anxious about getting in a car. The other one could be absolutely fine.
yeah,
So I find that interesting.
yeah,
And you
absolutely.
can have two children, and people say, "Why are my children so different?" And we expect our kids, they've been brought up in the same family, but they've been brought up at a different time. So the first child, the parents don't know what they're doing. They may have money issues or, struggling to get into their first house.
Yeah.
So when the second child comes along, the parents are far more relaxed. They have a totally different experience.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, probably most people can relate to my firstborn trying to get her to sleep. You know,
Oh.
we'd like commando roll out the room. I was and try and like, keep quiet, and you'd only have to hear a floorboard sort of creak, and she'd wake up. And then,
Yeah.
it even got to a stage where she was a little bit older, and we're doing like a checklist because she'd say, "Oh, I haven't had a drink, or I haven't had a snack," and I said, "Yeah, look, we've checked it all off. Go
Oh
to sleep."
no,
But then the second one comes along, you just
that's
chuck
gone
them
out the
into
window.
chuck them into bed, not literally. um, yeah, even my firstborn now, she can be in trouble sleeping sometimes, and that would probably be from our nervousness around it all and a program perhaps installed. But she's not too
Oh,
bad. But it's funny how you can look at stuff.
I really relate to that. My son was, I'd get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. He just didn't sleep.
Mm,
His brain was active all the time.
yeah. So how can we what's some practical steps or just realizations for perhaps some painters which are lacking in a bit of confidence? It's more, obviously work can be done, you can work with people and help people, but what would you say? It's just remind themselves, but it's not actually anything to do with their current situation. It's nothing to do with
Yeah.
their painting a bit. Is there any practical steps we can give people?
It's recognizing, thoughts aren't real, they're just thoughts. First of all, notice when you're starting to have those thoughts and go down that rabbit hole, my work's not good enough, and all that, when you start to get that critical voice popping into your head, just change it because, you can't hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. So if you replace that by, I am good at this. And I think tuning into what's real. So how many customers have they come, had to say, you've done a terrific job, write it all down. What's the evidence against what you're thinking? If it went to court, what's the evidence that you're no good at this? And
Yeah,
you'll see, once you start looking at all the compliments you've ever received, people calling you back, again, you've done one room and they've called you back to do the whole house, or
yeah,
they've recommended you.
yeah,
But sometimes it's called confirmation bias. We only let in what fits in with our beliefs, and we
yeah,
discard everything else. And I think it's just recognizing what you're doing and what you're saying to yourself.
yeah. And it's also as well about, again, when I done my training, it was like how your mind works. So it's very rare, like we're saying, you're present, is very rare. So your subconscious, one of its primary goals is to protect you. So it's always looking out, isn't it? So we could
Yeah.
be sitting at home on a Sunday night worrying about next week's job, and we're forward. That's a kind of, we're anxious because we're looking forward into something that doesn't even exist yet.
Oh,
And
do you know?
we're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
making it up in our head, and then perhaps looking at what went on in the past, and just we're going on this loop. We're very rarely present. So in the present moment, we don't need to be anxious because we're sitting at home chilling
Yeah.
out or whatever. And really, is it true? And it's kind of loop what we're on all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, and as you say, yeah, our brain likes to keep us safe, but a brain always likes what's familiar, and that's why sometimes it's hard to step out of your comfort zone and try new things. When somebody said to me about being present, it's not as easy
Uh,
as you think, and anxiety does come from thinking about the future that we none of us have control of, or berating ourselves from the past. You know, as you said, something's gone wrong in the past, and we're focusing back on that. And we can't change it.
no,
So to actually ground ourselves, and that's not easy to do. I
yeah,
find my partner's got grandchildren. Kids are great at grounding you
yeah,
because you'll take them for a walk and they're very much in the moment. They'll be looking at the squirrel going up the tree, or oh, look at this, the colours of the leaves and things.
yeah,
Getting out in fresh air and just grounding yourself really works.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, just thinking about, if you're having sleepless nights about a job coming up, it may not happen. How many, and also I love this, how many things have you thought about in the past, really worried about, that have never happened? So 95% of the things we worry about never happen,
yeah,
and the other percent wasn't worth worrying about anyway.
yeah. It's so interesting. It's like I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they were just saying learning to kind of surrender to what's going on in your head. So it's like accepting it, not letting it have any power over you. It's just your brain's doing a good job. And like I was saying earlier as well, I've done some training on old pain to go, so getting rid of physical pain and stuff like that. And it's just really, I've learned, and it sounds a bit mad now. My pain is going to think very absolutely nuts, but this subconscious or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. But communicating with it. So I kind of talk to myself, thankfully not out aloud at the moment, and just sort of reassure myself, because often what I'm worried about in the future, it won't be me as an adult because I know consciously it's all okay.
Yeah.
It might be younger Gary who's scared perhaps, or, because of a belief.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
some of the work I used to do, like NLP, which I loved, and doing timeline and stuff like that,
Yeah.
very powerful to go back to events. It doesn't have to be intense. You don't have to experience it all, but just to reassure your younger self, um, everything's going to be okay. Like here and now, you're safe. It worked out okay. And it's another subject totally, but, kind
It
of,
is, yeah.
you know, speaking to yourself, understanding yourself, if it's a problem, reassuring your younger self, visualizing what that younger self looks like, and even in that moment going down to him and comforting him and stuff like that. So you can really just change the way your mind works just by doing
Absolutely, yeah.
the
Yeah.
work as well.
I had a lady, she actually believed that it was her fault. She said something about her dad, and then soon after, her mum and dad split up. And she believed that because one sentence, her parents split up, it was her fault.
Mm,
So as an adult, she's very guarded when she speaks because she knows the power of her words,
yeah,
that things can go drastically wrong overnight. As a child, trying to make sense of everything, she didn't realize that her parents were having a lot of issues anyway. As I
yeah,
said, kids are, it's all about them.
yeah,
And she actually believed that. I had another lady, she believed her mum called. She said that I can tell this story. Her mum rang and said, come over. And she didn't go straight away. She had lots of jobs to do. By the time she got there, the ambulance crew were there trying to resuscitate her mum. Her mum went to hospital, sadly died. And she found it very traumatic. And she believed that if she got there sooner, she could have saved her mum.
yeah,
So we went back and we reviewed that, and she realised that if the paramedics couldn't save her mum, she couldn't, and it was that reasoning. But she also, her dad, she'd go around to look after her dad. She couldn't go into the house because she would have flashbacks,
yeah,
and that had gone on for years. And she just thought, do you know what? I'll just live with it. And
mm,
it got to the stage where she said, "Do you know, this is ridiculous. I need to sort it out."
yeah,
And it was one session and it was so powerful. And what I did, I got her, as she went down the pathway to pick up her dad, she
yeah,
remembered all the great times she had with her mum, you know, the love they had for each other. And she rang me on a Sunday night and she said, "Guess where I am? I'm sitting in my mum's house, in my mum's chair. I feel really happy." You
yeah,
know, you can solve these things and it
yeah.
isn't difficult.
No, and that's the point as well. Like years ago, I've explained to my group before, anxiety issues and stuff like that, and spoke to many people, just couldn't seem to get to the bottom of it, couldn't seem to resolve it. Saw a cognitive hypnotherapist, 4 sessions, I was a different person, and
Yeah.
that's why I trained to become one, and just my fascination around it all. That's the point, isn't it? As well, it's like we're led to believe stuff and trauma can take a long time to resolve, but it doesn't have to take a long time. And even around hypnotherapy, we said earlier, it's not woo woo stuff. It's not a clock in front of your eyes. It's an effective way of basically changing your subconscious programs, or getting into that subconscious part of your brain. And it's fascinating, and that's why I'm so grateful for people like yourself coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, I say, you know, when I go networking, you know, you update your phone, you update your computer. Why are we not updating our mindset? Why are we still letting our younger self control us and those negative beliefs that we have?
Yeah,
You know, and it's absolutely life changing. You know, I had a guy who it was 30 years of sleep issues, you know, sleepwalking, sleep paralysis, nightmares, had the whole lot going. Nobody could solve it.
yeah,
And I said to him on a meet, he was talking about how tired he was, and I said, "Come and see me." And he luckily he did, and
yeah,
he said, "I feel as if I've won the lottery."
yeah. And that's the point as well, isn't it? It's like, and again, what we were talking about, especially men opening up and talking, even if it's nothing major, but it's a little niggle where you've had that niggle for decades, you know,
Yeah.
why not look into it, and why not change it and make yourself, like you said earlier, again, I'll keep repeating what we were talking about earlier, but your clients feel lighter once they've worked with you,
Yes. Yeah.
so maybe a little niggle, and you may mask it with, you know, alcohol or whatever to make you confident or whatever it may be. But how great to get rid of it. And going back to me, my one of my anxieties was around traveling and flying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, we did some work when I was 6 years old. I got lost in Spain. Went out of my brother and sister, older brother and sister. We had just arrived, like keep an eye on Gary. And next minute, I'm gone for like 8 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And then I
Wow.
remember the panic. My mum, someone finally finding me, and I remember it was pitch black trying to cross a road, and I was crying, and no wonder I was bloody screwed.
Wow, that
Like,
is traumatic.
but it seemed to affect me more when I was older. Um, when I was younger, I seemed to travel okay, but it seemed to reignite when I was a little bit older. Um, yeah, no wonder poor younger me was a bit screwed.
Wow. And that's the thing, these things don't go away. I know it's a sad story of somebody. Again, men don't like to open up because, you know, you have to be tougher. And you'll find, you know, a parent would have said, "Well done for not crying," or "Aren't
Yeah,
you a brave boy?" And this belief that's passed down from generation to generation, you
yeah,
know, men aren't robots, they're human beings, they have emotions. And
yeah,
as we were talking earlier, you know, if you don't talk about your emotions and release your emotions, they will come out somewhere else.
yeah,
You know, physically, you'll have something going on, you know, stomach issues or whatever. But I know a guy who he was abused by a female when he was younger. The parents would leave him with this female, didn't know what was going on, and he's never got over it. And what he tried to do, so if you can't control what's in here, you try and control what's out there.
yeah,
So you might find somebody with OCD, for example.
mm,
He tried to control the people in his life to such a degree as he went through life, it got worse
yeah,
to the point where his third marriage has just broken down. because he was controlling her in such a way. I mean, the police were involved.
Yeah,
It got to that stage of it was so bad. He was filtering her phone calls. He
yeah,
had cameras monitoring her in the house just because he hasn't resolved what he went through as a child.
yeah.
It's wrecked his entire life.
And it makes sense, that again, your brain and it's how it works to protect you.
Yeah,
It's just manifested in all this. And the trouble is with that guy, he could seem to be, strange because it is strange behavior.
it
But
is.
the
Yeah.
fact that it's not his fault, that's what's so upsetting, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, oh, we could talk for hours. It's been really, really lovely to talk to you. I mean, I'm going to upload it into the group and stuff and give all your details out.
Thank
Should
you.
people wish to work with you, I see your website and stuff up there, but I'll put it all on anyway. But yeah, like I say, we could talk for hours about it, can we? Because it's
Yeah,
something
it is
we're
the most
passionate
fascinating.
about.
Yeah, it's so
Um,
fascinating.
but it's also extremely rewarding as a job for you, I can imagine, when
Oh
you
my
help so
goodness.
many
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah,
All right, Janet. Well, I'll stop recording. I'll have a quick chat when I stop recording, but I really, really appreciate you coming on. And
yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to chat to people.
thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.